The alien Empress's heir reached for my hand, and every warrior bowed in shock. Beginning. War has a way of grinding men down to their bones, but humans have always carried a stubborn spark, one that refuses to flicker out, no matter how overwhelming the odds. I was Captain Darius Kane of the Terran Defense Fleet, a man who had already survived battles that should have broken me. By the time the ceasefire with the Thalrin Empire was declared, I was more scar tissue than flesh, and more suspicion than trust. The Thalrin were not like us. Towering, elegant, scaled in subtle iridescent patterns, their empire stretched across dozens of systems. Their Empress was regarded as divine, her word carried like scripture, and her people worshipped her bloodline with something between reverence and fear. Humans, on the other hand, were the newest power in the galactic arena, resilient, yes, but insignificant compared to empires that had ruled for millennia. The fragile peace demanded symbolic gestures, and that was how I found myself on the crystalline world of Zithara, capital of the Thalrin. I was chosen as part of a diplomatic escort. My presence meant to demonstrate humanity's willingness to stand shoulder to shoulder with its former enemies. The palace of the Empress was a cathedral of glass and living crystal, a place that pulsed faintly as though the very building drew breath. Its halls were lined with warriors, their armor gleaming like obsidian mirrors. At the heart of it all sat the Empress herself, regal, terrifying, and utterly unreadable. And beside her, cradled in silver silks, was her heir, a child with scales softer than petals and eyes the color of stars just before dawn. That child's gaze would change everything. Diplomacy was a delicate game. I spoke only when spoken to, offered the formal bows our cultural liaisons had drilled into me, and tried not to show how the weight of so many alien eyes pressed against my back like blades. The Thalrin regarded humans with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. We were shorter, plainer, lacking the genetic artistry they engineered into their bloodlines. Yet in war, we had proven more dangerous than they had imagined. That earned us their grudging respect and their caution. The Empress's voice rang out like chimes struck in a storm. She spoke of renewal, of peace forged from fire. I listened, but my eyes betrayed me, flicking often toward the child at her side. The heir could not have been more than 5 in human terms, though alien growth was strange to measure. And then, as the ceremony drew toward its close, it happened. The heir slipped from the Empress's lap, tiny clawed feet padding across the polished crystal floor. The court shifted uncomfortably. No one moved to stop the child. No one dared. Thalrin etiquette dictated that the blood of the Empress acted on instincts guided by fate. To interfere was sacrilege. The child stopped before me. I felt my breath catch. The silence was absolute. Every warrior's eyes were on us. The heir reached out a small hand, scaled, delicate, trembling not with fear, but with something deeper. Recognition. "Father," the child said, voice clear, unbroken. The word struck like thunder. My ears rang with it. My heart stumbled in my chest. Gasps rippled through the chamber. 100 armored warriors shifted in perfect unison, their knees bending, their heads bowing low. Even the high ministers, creatures who commanded fleets larger than all of Earth's combined, lowered themselves to the ground. Because in Thalrin culture, for the heir to choose someone, to name them in such a way, was destiny made manifest. It was no accident. It was no childish mistake. It was the will of the stars. And so, in the span of a breath, I, a battered human captain, had been named something impossible, father to the bloodline of the Empress. The conflict, the days that followed were chaos wrapped in ritual. The Empress summoned me privately. Her gaze pierced through me, sharp enough to strip away any lies. "The blood has spoken," she said, her voice neither angry nor pleased. "The heir has chosen you. Do you understand what that means, human?" "I don't," I admitted. Honesty seemed my only shield. "It means," she continued, "that our people now see you as part of the imperial line. Every warrior, every priest, every common soul in this empire will treat you as one touched by fate. To reject this is to spit on prophecy. To accept it is to bind your destiny to ours forever." Her words were a cage, gilded yet unbreakable. Humanity's future now hung on my answer. But I had seen the child's eyes. They had not been the eyes of politics or prophecy. They were the eyes of someone who inexplicably knew me, saw me, not as a soldier, not as a tool of war, but as family. And though I could not explain it, something in me responded. Some paternal instinct, buried beneath years of violence, awoke. "I accept," I said softly. The Empress studied me for a long moment, then inclined her head the faintest degree. "So be it." But not everyone welcomed this turn of fate. Whispers spread through the empire. Generals questioned my worth. Priests accused me of blasphemy. A faction of nobles demanded the child be tested, to prove their choice was not tainted. Some even plotted in the shadows, believing the only way to preserve purity was through bloodshed, mine or the heir's. I became both shield and target. The child clung to me whenever I was near, as though afraid I might vanish. And I found myself training them in small, human ways, teaching simple games, telling stories of Earth, laughing in ways I had not in years. Against all logic, I was becoming what they had called me. Their father. Climax. The assassination attempt came during the Festival of Ascension. Thousands gathered in the central square of Zithara, crystal towers blazing with light. The Empress stood before her people, the heir at her side, and me, the human anomaly, just behind. The attack was sudden. A blade of plasma sliced through the air, aimed not at me, but at the child. I didn't think. I moved. The weapon struck my armor, burning deep, but I held fast, shielding the air with my body. Warriors clashed with the assassins, steel against steel, cries echoing like war drums. When the dust settled, I was on my knees, smoke rising from my armor, blood soaking my side. The child's small hands gripped mine, eyes wide with terror. And in that silence, before the crowd, before the galaxy, the heir cried out again. "Father." The word rang louder than any weapon. It carried across the square, through the halls of power, into the hearts of thousands. The people saw not a human interloper, but a protector chosen by destiny, who bled for their heir. The warriors bowed. The priests lowered their heads. Even the Empress, unflinching and divine, pressed her hand to her heart. At that moment, the bond was sealed. Not politics, not prophecy, but truth. Ending. I survived the wound, though the scar would never fade. Neither, I suspected, would my place in the empire. From that day onward, the Thalrin addressed me with a title I never expected, Consort of Fate. I was still human, still an outsider, but I had become something more, a bridge between species, a guardian of the air, and perhaps, in time, a father not just to one child, but to the fragile peace between our peoples. As I stood on the balcony of the palace, the child's small hand, and in that word, I found not just destiny, but redemption.